Welcome back, everyone. How's the sound? Once again, I am Jenny Williamson, the Executive Director of the C3 Foundation. On behalf of myself and our founder and CEO, Claudia Christian, we are so glad that you are with us watching our second annual virtual TSM conference, Stronger Than Your Drink. Please feel free to use the chat function if you're watching live on Twitch to ask questions all throughout the panel. This conference is available to view and to participate in for free, thanks to our two co-headline sponsors, RIA Health and Work It Health. If you would like to support the work of the C3 Foundation, there is a donation link in our profile, and we also have a timer that'll drop a donation link into the chat during the broadcast. Also, if you're on Twitter, please feel free to live tweet our conference with the hashtags Stronger Than Your Drink and Options Save Lives. It's a great way to amplify the impact of our conference. Next up, we have a panel on support for weight loss surgery and alcohol use disorder that's led by Laurie Mandel. Laurie Mandel is a family and psychiatric nurse practitioner with over 20 years of experience treating adults and children of all ages. She obtained her Master's of Nursing with a specialty as a family nurse practitioner in 1997 from Case Western University in Cleveland, Ohio. She then obtained a postmaster's degree in psychiatry in 2010. She has extensive experience treating patients in community mental health centers, correctional facilities, and private practice. She became familiar with TSM at an ASAM meeting in 2019 after she met myself and Claudia, and she's been successfully using TSM on many of her patients with alcohol use disorders. With her on the panel are going to be Steph and Jill. Because it was more of a panel discussion, we had to record this in advance because there was a last-minute scheduling conflict.
Hi, my name is Laurie Mandel. I'm a psychiatric and family nurse practitioner, and I have been in private practice for the past 10 years or so, and I've been treating different mental health disorders, including depression, anxiety, bipolar, and some addictions. One of my very great interests has been in alcohol use disorders. I have family history of alcohol use disorder. I myself had alcohol use disorder at one time in my life. And so I have personal desire to help people. And I was very, very fortunate to find Jenny and Claudia about, it's going on at least 2 years, 2.5 years, maybe 3 years at an ASAM meeting. ASAM stands for the Addiction Society of Addiction Medicine. I'm not sure the exact term for that, but it was a wonderful meeting in Orlando, and there happened to be a small booth with Jenny and Claudia, and I actually was so floored with the concept of TSM, the Sinclair method, after speaking with them, that I found myself getting very emotional that I had not heard about this, having been a nurse practitioner for over 20 years at the time and never hearing about this type of a treatment. Seeing my frustrations with a lot of my patients. So it was the start of our relationship. So I also have the pleasure of having Stephanie Allen, who I'd like to have as one of my patients. And Stephanie, if you could introduce yourself.
Sure. I'm Stephanie Allen out of Cincinnati, Ohio. I'm 46 and I have 3 children. And I struggle with alcohol use disorder and tried many, many things, which we'll talk about. And I am also a weight loss surgery Roux-en-Y patient. So I had that in 2004. And since then, the alcohol use disorder's really gotten bad over the years and struggled with getting help and trying to, I guess, climb this mountain and stay on the other side of that mountain.
And Jill, I'd like you to introduce yourself.
My name is Jill Chakowski. I am 61 years old, mother of 4, grandmother of 2 now, a legal assistant in the Philadelphia area. And I had weight loss surgery in 2007. In some circles, I introduced myself as a codependent, alcoholic, compulsive overeater who has also struggled with sexual and chemical addictions.
That's a mouthful.
Yeah.
So, ladies, thank you so much for joining, and I'm so happy to be a part of the C3 Foundation. Steph, tell me a little bit about what prompted you to, number one, get your surgery.
So at the time, I was 30, just getting ready to be 30 years old. I was 309 pounds at the time, had a 1.5-year-old little boy. Struggled with weight my whole life. I was abused as a child. There were many different things in my life that kind of escalated into my food addiction, and I just would eat, like, just because I was emotional, or I was happy, I would eat. I was sad, I would eat. I was depressed, I would eat. And of course, I didn't make great choices. Even though I worked out every day, it didn't matter. The weight just came on over the years. And I just decided at that point, after meeting with a surgeon who told me I could get the surgery, which I was super excited about, that I was absolutely 100% going to do this. So I went to have the surgery in November of 2004. Met with my surgeon about 3 times before my actual surgery, scheduled it all up, went through the psychiatric evaluation, which was, I think, 30 minutes of an interview with a counselor, just kind of talking through it. Met with a dietitian as well to kind of tell you what your life is going to be like after the surgery. And pretty much that was it. You know, went in on a Friday, flew back from Phoenix on a Thursday night, was in this operating room Friday morning, and stayed there through the weekend. Came home Monday, 28 pounds lighter, just like that.
So you had very, very little in the way of any kind of psychiatric care at all. What about after the surgery?
After the surgery, I had none. So in 2004, when I had my surgery done, there were no, I mean, it was literally, this was all stuff to do getting ready for the surgery. Nothing was really after. I had to keep my annual, and I still do actually, see my surgeon once a year to get blood work done, because your iron can go low. You have problems with digesting certain medicines or vitamins. So, you know, I was told all that going into it, that I was going to have to take a multivitamin for the rest of my life. I was going to have to take a heartburn pill for the rest of my life every day. But really, that was it. You know, I saw him for post-op stuff to make sure I had the full blown, from the belly button to the breast, opened up Roux-en-Y. So he had to make sure that I was healing appropriately. My stitches and staples and all that were out, and no infections. So after that, I just see him once a year.
It's incredible.
Checkup.
Jill, did you have a similar experience prior to your surgery?
Somewhat, yeah. I had a little bit more counseling, but I had been in therapy. So I saw my therapist. She had a specific interview. I think I saw her for 2 hours. And she was mostly concerned with the support, you know, that I would have a support system afterwards. And, but yeah, I was 320 pounds when I had my surgery. I had gained most of my weight after I had my children. I gained 100 pounds with my first pregnancy, and he had the nerve to weigh 7, which I didn't think was really fair. It got worse after that. Yeah. So it was I also had diabetes, hypertension, high cholesterol. I had esophageal reflux disorder. I had heel spurs. I had a lot of comorbidities, and I was 48 years old when I had the surgery.
So, Steph, when did you notice that you were having a problem with alcohol?
So it was about 18 months to 2 years after I had the surgery. So it was 2005 going into 2006. I just wanted, so what would happen is I would drink and then all of a sudden that was never enough, right? So that drinking train pulled in, but it never wanted to pull out. So I was the person who would start drinking and party all night long, and just there was no stopping. And then at first it was just, a couple beers here or there would get me drunk. And then it was like onto wine. And then once it got into wine, it was just different. I could never have just 4 drinks. So if I knew if I drank more than, if I got to that 4th drink, forget it. It's an all night mess. It's just going to be a mess. And I couldn't stop. And the more I noticed, like, my friends in my circle that had been my friends for many, many years started to dwindle away, right? Because I was becoming a mess. And then friends that would enable that behavior started to become my everyday friends. So I saw like a lot of circles changing, a lot of change in my life. My personal life was also happening at the same time. And it was all really, I think, just falling apart or getting messy, shall I say, around the alcoholism. And it just took over. It seemed like I wasn't prepared for it at all. Like, it wasn't like I knew it was coming, or I knew to watch out for it, or it really did seem like it took over overnight. Fast.
Jill, what was your history?
Yeah, that sounds so similar. So I had the surgery in May of 2007, and I didn't drink for the first year and a half. They tell you not to. And then I started drinking once a week with my husband outside. And I noticed within a couple of weeks, I was having 2 drinks to his 1. I knew I had a problem with alcohol probably about a year and a half in, about December 2008, I guess it was, when I saw that I was doing with alcohol what I used to do with food. I was hiding it. I was sneaking. I was lying about how much I was consuming. And then it kind of took on a life of its own. And I thought, well, I need to stop this. As soon as I saw that, I thought, I need to stop. So I tried to stop and then found I couldn't. And so I'd get, 30 days, and then I would drink again. And then at the end of my drinking, I was drinking morning, noon, and night. Like, literally get up in the morning, have a drink, go to work, drink at lunchtime, stop on my break for another bottle, hide it in my soda bottle at work, hit a bar on the way home. It was really literally morning, noon, and night. It was awful. It was awful and so unexpected.
So this was how much after your surgery, when you hit rock bottom as far as your drinking?
So I would say that at about a year and a half, I'm going to say we see a lot of this at about a year and a half. That's kind of like the danger mark, year and a half, 2 years. The honeymoon is over. The weight is off. Now you've lost all this weight. You don't have your food to comfort you. This is generally where we see people start to fall off. It's where I noticed it at about the year and a half mark. I got sober. I'm very fortunate because I didn't drink for a whole lot of time. I actually today have 11 years sober.
Congratulations.
So, thank you. So that was like, but I hear people struggle a lot longer than that.
Yeah. So, yeah.
What happened to you, the rock bottom, and then what kind of things did you do for yourself?
So as we got close, so I've been trying to climb this mountain for about 5 years now. So it's 2021, right? So I have been really working super hard. From the minute I noticed that this was becoming kind of a train wreck of my life, I just needed to make some changes, right? So I have changed professions because my old profession, drinking was one of the things that you just had to do as part of the job, right? And sales and things like that. So I've changed professions. I have went to AA. I have done smart recovery for the last 2+ years, working through that, trying to use cognitive behavioral therapy. I have had mentors in our transfer weight loss addiction group that have been there and helpful and trying to kind of pull me up by my bootstraps when I feel like I can't make it. But I have really tried a lot of different things. I've done the whole, I promise I'm not going to drink any day, but on the weekend. or I'm only going to drink so many days a week, or I'm going to have so many cocktails a week, or so many glasses of wine a week, or I'm not going to drink tonight and I'm going to white knuckle it through. And I've committed many, many different things to myself only to fall back down and feel like I'm defeated every time I fall. And one of the things that I've noticed over the last so I've been on TSM since December of 2020, so 2020, and I've been working
COVID year.
Yes, COVID year, yes. So I've been working that super hard, and it has its ups and downs, right? As those that have been on TSM know, that it definitely has its valleys and its highs and lows. But I also work with my transfer addiction group, and I still go to Smart Recovery, so I still work that program as well. But I really noticed about 5 years ago that I needed to get it together, and I started working on it. But it just, everything that I would try, and I don't have a lot of stamina. I'm not that person that can stick with something for a super long time. It's just not me as a personality. But I have tried many different things to try and get over this hump, and it all seemed to fail. So I was at my wit's end, really, when I found TSM. I just was like, I at that point I was ready to give up. I really was. I was like, this is me. This is how I'm going to be for the rest of my life. And someday I'm just going to die. And that's how it's going to be.
So how did you find TSM?
Actually, ironically, on our Facebook page, someone had posted something in one of the chats about just kind of being like where I was, like, I just quit. I mean, how can you everything I do, I fail. I can't figure it out. Can somebody just tell me how you got sober, which we see a lot on that Facebook page? Can somebody just tell me, did you go cold turkey? How did you go about it? Did you go at it alone? A lot of people ask that. Did you go at it alone? And then when I was reading through the comments, which I always like to read through the comments because I feel like they cheerlead me on to just one more day, right? Someone had posted the link to the 3C or C3 Foundation and said, I did this, TSM. And then some other person down in the chat said, I did that too. And then I was like, okay, well, you've done everything else and you keep falling down. Let's try. So that's what I did, is I reached out to the C3 Foundation and got connected to you, Laurie. And since then, we've been making pretty good strides.
Oh, that's amazing. And Jill, tell me a little bit about how you started your transfer addictions after WLS, weight loss surgery, and what you've seen from that.
Well, first, I'd like to say I tried a lot of things myself. It didn't work the first time. I went to Celebrate Recovery, which is a Christ-centered 12-step program first. I came out of that and drank. I went to AA, came out and drank. I went to rehab, came out and drank. Went to IOP, came out and drank. Finally, what took for me was I went to a therapist, and she said she wanted me to make 90 meetings in 90 days AA, and to go ask my doctor for antabuse. So I did. My doctor would not prescribe antabuse. He said, I have no idea what that will do to someone with weight loss surgery. So he wouldn't prescribe it, but I think it was my willingness. And I did do 90 meetings in 90 days, and I did get a sponsor when I was told, when I did work the program. So like I said, I think I got sober in 2010, and I don't remember exactly what prompted it, but in about 2013, I think I met a couple of people in AA with similar story, the weight loss surgery. And I thought, I was so afraid and so alone when I developed alcoholism after my weight loss surgery. And I didn't want anyone else to ever feel that afraid and that alone. And so I started the group, and I'm floored by how it's grown. And we don't just see people with alcoholism, although that's probably the top transfer. I think second to that is shopping.
Yes.
And then we see, we have prescription medications, people on opioids. We have street drugs, sex, which was another one. I actually developed a sex addiction after my alcoholism. That was not a fun ride, but thank God that went away too. And then yeah, we have a couple of gamblers. So we run the gamut of all kinds of addictions after weight loss surgery. But we also find that people who had RNY, like Stephanie and I did, and if there is a history of alcoholism or addiction in the family, those increase your risk for developing alcoholism or addiction after weight loss surgery like 1,000-fold. Like it's almost, I tell people, if you have those two things, don't ever pick up a drink, because that's how quick and devastating it is.
Well, it looks like we have temporarily lost Laurie, so I'll go ahead and pose a question early. So it seems to me as though much of the research that has actually linked weight loss surgery as a high risk for developing alcohol use disorder have only come out in the last couple of years. I would say the last 3 or 4 is when I started seeing new research that linked the two and said there's reason to believe this might be more than just a casual relationship between the two. Were either of you ever warned that the absorption differences after surgery could potentially lead to additional problems with alcohol?
So I was not. I had mine in 2004, so maybe it wasn't known then, but they did tell me about vitamins, right? So they did talk about vitamins and how I was going to have to take chewable vitamins and things like that. So they knew about the absorption piece, but I was not taught. They didn't talk about the alcohol. And just like Jill had said, the transfer addiction, like if I'm not drinking, right, and I'm sober, I'm shopping. Like that's my habit. I know for a fact that when I'm sober, my shopping bill goes up because I'm busy buying packages and need packages on my door. So my husband can always tell. So right now I'm working on both and trying to use my smart recovery for both so that I can get them both in order. But no, none of the transfer addiction or alcohol absorption or any of that was ever spoken to me. What about you, Jill?
No, we were not. I was not warned, and like I said, even my therapist in the psychological evaluation was more concerned that I had a support system with regard to food. It was never mentioned that I could become an alcoholic. Yeah, that was not. I think that Carney Wilson, is that name sound familiar? She had come out with some stories, so it had been talked about on Oprah. So there was that little bit of awareness in my head, but we did not talk about it. And honestly, the surgeon I went to, my daughter had sleeve surgery way after mine, like in 2017, I think it was. And her doctor, she had her surgery in August, and in November at Thanksgiving, he told her, if you want to go ahead and have a drink, at Thanksgiving, go ahead. And I had to educate him on what had happened to me and say, you need to stop telling your patients that they can have drinks. You need to stop telling them that they can have alcohol. And I was also really very fortunate. I used to facilitate a weight loss surgery support group at my surgeon's office. So it got brought up every time we had a meeting. So at least monthly, I would tell people about it.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing, the statistics that I've been doing a little bit of research in this, and that I think that the percentage is over double the average statistics for someone who's had weight loss surgery to become an alcoholic or have alcohol use disorders or some kind of transfer addiction. So it's, because of the surgery, it's affecting the endorphins and it's affecting how your body's metabolizing, and there's so many physiological changes that are going on. And I'm sorry, I blanked out before there for a minute, but it really, I think it lies in the responsibility of medical providers who are seeing you prior to surgery, after surgery. The information has to get out there. There has to be more involvement, more information. and constant monitoring. So, for instance, Steph, you didn't see anybody after your surgery. I mean, this is a very extensive, expensive, life-changing, altering surgery, and it deserves to have the best pre and post-op care. And that includes understanding what can go right and what can go wrong.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that it would be nice if they did alcohol tests. I don't know if that's possible, because if they would have done that and they told you that you couldn't drink, and if you did drink, this was going to happen or could happen, and then they alcohol tested you, I'm sure people wouldn't be so apt to pick up, right?
Right.
And it would probably save a lot of people's lives, because we've had people on our page that are no longer with us because of things like this.
Because you think that they have stopped coming or passed away, or
no? Go ahead, Jill. Go ahead, Jill.
Yeah, we've had a few people die.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that they just couldn't get sober, or we've had a couple emergency liver transplants in our group. So yeah, it's been rough. I wanted to mention the surgeon that I went to. Their office no longer exists, unfortunately. They did offer support groups. 3 times a month they had support group meetings, but they weren't mandatory.
Yes.
And they weren't mandatory before or after, but they were available. My daughter had a surgery in a hospital, and they had no follow-up care. Like there's no support group. There's no, come back for your blood work. They just said, go to your regular doctor for blood work once a year. It was just crazy how little follow-up there was.
Are you working legislatively with the medical boards, or how are you working with the education department?
I am not.
Mm-hmm. Well, you're doing a lot with what you're doing. I mean, you've got a huge face group that you're administrating. So that's huge. But I'm just wondering, if you ladies have any ideas on how the situation can be advanced and disseminated.
People have talked about like lawsuits, like, there are people that are so upset and they want to sue, they want a class action suit. And I'm like, I work in the legal field and I don't see that even being a possibility, because you're talking about individual surgeons. You're talking about, there's no guarantee that you are going to get it or not going to get it. It doesn't seem to me the kind of thing we can take legal action against the surgeons for. But I really don't know how to educate people. I don't know what.
Other than
writing a book.
Right. Other than spreading the word amongst our group, a lot of our group is very boisterous about it. We meet every week. We have an open kind of coffee time where people come and we talk about what we're struggling with. And there's plenty of people that are working on books in our group, working on podcasts in our group, to put out to the public, to make sure that people that are considering this surgery really are informed. And hopefully the doctors will hear that and start taking some initiative around that.
Yeah.
So I think that goes back. Sorry.
A lot of us belong to other bariatric, like we're in the bariatric community. So on Facebook, I belong to several bariatric groups. So anytime somebody from our group mentions transfer addiction, we get an influx of people into our group.
And that's actually how I signed up with Jill, right? So I was in a bariatric group, once again, just struggling with alcohol, trying to figure out, I knew there was a link, just trying to figure it out, see if I was the only person in the world having the problem. I posted in that group, or I saw in that group, and I was like, me too, I'm having a problem too. And then Jill came into that group and was like, we've got a whole Facebook page for this. And I was like, what?
I can't tell you how many times people will post in a bariatric group, when can I start drinking alcohol? And it just...
They'll ask you, but they won't ask their physician. which is very interesting, because I think that some of the information that I read was some physicians say, don't drink for 6 months, just give your body a chance to re-regulate into its new norm. And then you can pick up a glass perhaps. But again, as you said before, it would be nice to know if you could do a test ahead of time, if you have a strong family history of alcohol problems, and really, really advise those particular patients about the potentials, and then to refer them to the Facebook group, to keep up with that, because it sounds like it's a wealth of information. And it sounds like almost if there was some kind of database of bariatric surgeons, or I know there's bariatric surgery journals, et cetera, if this could be an article that could be published in one of the bariatric surgery articles, to see what's going on and to see what's going on in the grassroots level, so that patients do have a place to go. And I don't know what kind of stigma. Do you think that people who have had bariatric surgery, is it one thing that people don't necessarily want to talk about? Is it as much of a stigma as a type of addiction, or no?
I don't think it's so much of a stigma as it's hard for the bariatric patient to accept that it happened to them, because it happens so quickly. It doesn't make sense in the real world. You meet someone else in, say, AA, and they've been drinking. It took them 25 years to get from stage 1 to stage 4, where it takes us, maybe a year. So I don't think there's more of a stigma on it. I think it's very hard for the individual to even recognize it. I wanted to mention, Laura, while you were out, I had mentioned people with RNY who have a family history are at a much, much, much higher risk. But we do see people in our group with the sleeve surgery. They also have issues, and duodenal switch is another type of bariatric surgery. So it seems to cross all the different kinds of surgery, although RNY seems to be the most effective because of the rewiring of the intestine.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. So, ladies, any suggestions for viewers out there?
Do your research. Google it now. Really, because Google wasn't around when I had my surgery. Yeah. And trust me, we have talked about this over and over in our groups. And to be honest, even if they told me I could have been an alcoholic, I probably still would have had the surgery, right? I lost 186 pounds. Please, I would do it again tomorrow. I just would know better than to pick up that drink. Because it's a monkey that you can't get rid of. It's so true.
Yeah. And the C3 Foundation is doing an amazing job to disseminate the information. And I think that how their grassroots level, again, it would be really nice to kind of use that as a role model, I think, to see how physicians and other medical providers can be aware of how to counsel our patients properly. And knowing that there's resources out there. I didn't know about these resources until I met you, Steph, for patients, the Facebook page, et cetera. And I didn't know anything about C3 and TSM until I met Jenny. So, we do read literature. We do try to keep up to date with what's going on, but there's so much out there to keep abreast of. So I guess we need it hammered into our heads.
So I know that there's people in the TSM groups that have had weight loss surgery, because I've been pinged on that Facebook page a couple times on that. So I know that it's making its way. And I know that people that are on our transfer addiction weight loss Facebook page and in our group take naltrexone every day, because that is an important part of their sobriety. That helps them, which is also the pill that we use for TSM.
So, Steph, what I would like to ask you first is so you've been on the Sinclair method for about 6 months.
Yes.
What kind of modifications have you had to make because of your weight loss surgery?
None.
Did you
None
have
for
any absorption issues of the naltrexone? Did you have to vary your wait time beyond the 60 minutes? Because I know that some of these things come up from time to time.
No, I've been compliant every time, and I wait the 60 minutes. Alexa helps me do that. And then I seem to be fine. Now, it's interesting that you bring that up because, it is an up and down, right? So I'd be interested to see, like, if I waited an hour and a half because of the absorption, if that would make my drink counts lower than what they would have been if I waited the 60. I don't know. It'd be fun to play around with to see if that plays into it. But from an absorption perspective, the naltrexone, I take it and it works for what it's supposed to with TSM. Other people in our group take it twice a day and it's worked for them for years. So I think but everybody is completely different.
And you decided to combine the Sinclair method with Smart Recovery. What was your reasoning behind particularly Smart Recovery? Because people choose many different additional I've seen people Smart Recovery. I've seen people whose ultimate goal is abstinence, who find a supportive AA group and say, I'm lowering now, but my ultimate goal is to stop completely. So I feel like this is where I should be. What was it about Smart Recovery that made it fit for you?
Sure. So I was, as part of my last, 5 years of struggles, I Googled recovery near me. And there was a Smart Recovery meeting on Thursday nights at a local hospital. And I started attending that and using their tools, like the 3Ds, delay, track, decide, right? Some of those things that came simple for me when I was working on my recovery. And then what was happening at that time was I would still fall off the horse. So if I fell off the horse in AA, I always felt like I wasn't worthy. And then even though they don't want you to feel that way, that's just how I felt because they have rules. And then, but with Smart Recovery, they're like, well, you didn't lose your last 36 days. You just had a blip on the radar. We get to move forward and we need to unpack how we fell off and what we want to do about that. So then I would start learning things about myself, about like what days of the week are a trigger. Why is it a trigger? Fill that time with something else. And then what would happen is I was working the Smart Recovery piece. And then I felt like I needed a little bit more because when I drink and then I go on our Transfer Weight Loss Addiction group and I see other people that have drank, it makes me feel bad because I feel like I've let everybody down. Even though that's not them, that's me and I own that. But what would happen is I was so worried about it. I was like, I need a second tool. I need something else, because if not, then I don't belong in this group and it's not nice for me to continue to be in the group, which isn't true at all. It's my mind again. So then that's how I found out about the 3C, and that's how our C3 Foundation and became on TSM. And then I started researching TSM as I started moving through TSM. But yeah, that's it. That's my story. That's why I use the two together, because they seem to work for me.
And it's wonderful that you already had that other tool in place and were able to add the Sinclair method to it. Sometimes it's the flip side. People start with the Sinclair method, and then as their drinking goes down, say, I need something else for the non-physical part.
Yes. And that's exactly it. And my, every week when I meet with my Smart Recovery team, we talk about like setting goals, and I set a goal every week. And like right now I'm working on my shopping, because when I'm sober, I'm shopping. So I'm working on that addiction piece too.
And approximately how much have you reduced on the Sinclair method on an average?
So, on an average, I've actually had a couple of weeks where 0 drinks, which is super exciting. Congrats. For me. But I used to be 28 drinks a week, now to down 8 maybe, and some weeks none.
Excellent.
Yep, it's been working great. It's been 6 months of ups and downs, but I'll tell you, it has been amazing. And sometimes I still get in my head, right? I'm like, oh, you overdid it. You overdid it. Now your counts are up because I use the app. I use the app to track all my drinks, track my day, my week over week, so I can watch for patterns. And then I then can go on the Facebook page and say, not feel bad, because people are like, oh, it takes 6 to 9 months. Sometimes it takes a year. You didn't get alcohol use disorder overnight. It took you years to develop it. So I just keep being patient with myself. So I think between Smart Recovery, the TSM Facebook group, and the Transfer Weight Loss group, it's a beautiful mix. It just works for me.
Wonderful. And so, Laurie, you've been using the Sinclair method in your practice now for a few years. What would you say overall is your patient success rate?
I was just talking to someone about this morning, and it's really up to the patient. If the patient is willing and really motivated, and I love the Sinclair method, but I always tell my patients it's not a magic pill. You cannot do it without changing something with your life. So in my personal practice, we try to go through, as Stephanie was saying, I kind of use that same approach in my practice. How can we mix up your life and your patterns of behavior in order for this to be successful for you? And if the person is willing to do that, we see great success. If the person is doesn't really want to make a change in their lifestyle, it's questionable. So
of the motivated, what percent would you say?
I would say it's a very good percentage. And I think that people come to a point, there are some people that definitely need sobriety that may start with a TSM and they just cannot handle drinking anything. They can't. The TSM will just not work. And then there's those people that, you know what, I'm really happy that I'm not drinking 10 drinks a night, and then I'm drinking 2 or 3 or 4. And I know that I can finish and I can stop. And instead of the drink having control over me, I have control over what I'm drinking. And in my mind, that person is a success story.
That's excellent. Oh, sounds like somebody's got their volume getting a feedback a little. So what would, and I'll leave this for all three of you. Our conference theme is stronger than your drink. So how does the Sinclair method for Laurie, for Steph, make a person stronger than their drink? Jill, how does knowledge of support systems and various ways of gathering support and knowledge make someone stronger than their drink? So I'll let you all go in whatever order you choose.
Steph, Jill, go ahead.
Okay, so for me, stronger than my drink is really just having the right mix of support. And it's different for everybody. And you just have to keep trying until you get the magic mix. I think everybody's really different. So in my opinion, I think I have found it for me. And it's because I have lots of different support groups and different tools in my toolbox that I use. But for everybody else, it's different. I had a friend that I was mentoring and working with who has decided she is better off going sober, and she has been sober for months now and doing a great job. And we still meet and we still talk and we still work on things together. And that's just how we work. I'm just in a process right now of getting there. And this is how I'm getting there. So that's how I'm stronger than my drink.
Oh, yeah, that's really interesting. So I'm going to say from my perspective, and it's an AA perspective, I am not stronger than my drink. I will never be stronger than a drink. And that's why that's what, we talk about surrender. I am also not stronger than sugar. Like, I can't eat sugar safely. I cannot drink alcohol safely. It is just not going to work for me. So what makes my recovery stronger is the support of other people. I do work a 12-step program. I help others. That prayer meditation piece for me is really important. Daily, like kind of a daily reflection, saying, because it's not just about the food or the alcohol. It's about all the underneath stuff. Where am I resentful? Where am I being selfish? Where am I being dishonest? It's really looking at my life every day and having a safe place to share everything is amazing. And that makes me stronger.
Well, after 11 years of sobriety, you've obviously found something that works for you. And you would not be a candidate for the Sinclair method because we actively, when we're instructing providers, we tell people if somebody has long-term sobriety and it's working for them, don't suggest this. This is not for them. This is only when it's not working and it's relapsing and that. So you have found a way to be stronger than the pull that drink had on you. So yeah. I do want to commend you on that because you found what works for you. And that's honestly, that's the most important thing in the end.
I don't know that they had the Sinclair method or that it was, known back, 10 years. 11 years ago. But when I first heard about it, my addict brain went, "Ooh, wait a minute. So I could take a pill and drink again?" And I had to really reel that in and say, no. Why would you try it? So sometimes my husband will say 10 years later, don't you think you could have a drink safely? I'm like, I'll never know because I do not want to find out.
So I had a patient like that who had been sober for years. And she came to me and she said, I want to get married and I want to have a glass of champagne. Will you put me on the Sinclair method? And I strongly advised her, no, it's a really bad idea. You're doing so well right now. And why play with fire? However, my personal belief in how I interact with my patients is I have to let them lead the way. So I did prescribe her the naltrexone. She hated it because it made her feel terrible. But at least it got it out of her head because she was talking about it, thinking about it, ruminating about it. She really just wanted to celebrate her wedding with a glass of champagne. So in that situation, I felt that I had an obligation to monitor her very closely, obviously, and to actually trust that she's going to tell me how this is going to be affecting her. And she on her own came to the conclusion that, you know what, I don't need it. I don't need the drink. And she came to it on her own. So I think that probably there are a lot of people that might toy around with the idea. And the problem is that we're all a bunch of kids. So if we're told no, we may just want to go, well, you're not going to tell me no. I'm going to try it anyway. So I believe in helping people where they're at. And I think that that's how they can become stronger than their drink, because there are so many ways to go about it. And there are beautiful options, Smart Recovery Elevator, TSM. And I try to really find what works for the individual. But I really feel strongly that the TSM, it's a pill that can help. And in most of my patients, I would say it's been very, very helpful.
Wonderful. All right. So I hope you were able to pull some good nuggets from that presentation. We'd like to thank our co-presenting sponsors, Work It Health and RIA Health. And we're going to take a quick break, and we will be back for our next panel at 4 p.m. Eastern with Dr. Andres Kalnins from Australia. So I'm really excited to share that one with you. So make sure you're back here at 4 p.m.